listener, and welcome to Book 6, Chapter 5, Bite-Sized Tales, the audio flash fiction podcast. In today's chapter, we're pleased to present a guest author.
Hi, I'm Simon, creator of Legend of the Bones, a hybrid dark fantasy audio drama driven by Dungeons & Dragons. I'm an unashamed nerd who is obsessed with history and wild places. You can probably tell from my accent that I'm British, and today's tale takes us back to a violent chapter in my homeland's past. Please be warned, this story is intended for a mature audience and contains themes which some listeners might find upsetting. So without further ado, I present No Good Deed Goes Unpunished. Off the south coast of England, beside the Thames estuary, lies the Isle of Sheppey, separated from the mainland by a narrow tidal channel called the Swale. But in the year 834, there was no England. Sheppey, as it was then known, was part of the Anglo-Saxon kingdom of Kent. Sheppey, meaning Sheep Island, lived up to its name. The island's rich pasture made it ideal for livestock. The flocks belonged to Minster Abbey, founded 2 centuries earlier by Queen Saxaber, and entrusted to a Benedictine order of nuns who called Sheppey home. One bright morning in June, Sister Aylesworth tended the flock. The pastures were lush with new grass, the meadows ablaze with wild flowers. Spring lambs leapt and kicked, while the ewes grazed lazily beneath the early summer sun. Aylesworth tilted her face to the vast blue sky and breathed deeply. On a day like this, it was easy to feel God's presence and to believe in His purpose. At 16, she was the youngest member of the Abbey. The year before, raiding Danes had razed her village to the ground. Orphaned, she had briefly lived with her aunt and uncle, until her uncle proved as cruel as the invaders. When he tried to force himself upon her, she fled, seeking sanctuary at Minster Abbey. The months that followed were slow and painful. Under the guidance of Mother Windflad, she had found fragile solace in prayer. Grief did not vanish, but it softened. Aylesworth turned to her work, counting the flock and scanning for injury or illness. That was when she noticed one lamb was missing. Most likely a fox had taken it, but if she did not at least search, Mother Windflad would not be pleased. With no sign of blood or struggle, Aylesworth made her way east towards the soft grassy cliffs. Perhaps the lamb had wandered too near the edge and fallen, and, God willing, survived upon the beach below. When she reached the summit, the North Sea stretched before her, its cold grey-green waters rising and falling beneath a scatter of white crests. Her gaze swept the steep slope, searching for a flash of white fleece among the tussocks and brambles. Instead, she saw him. A dark shape lay motionless upon the shingle. Gathering her woolen habit, Aylesworth hurried down the slope. Pebbles crunched underfoot as she approached the still form. The man wore only a sodden ragged tunic and breeches. His cloth was poor, his feet bare. Heart pounding, she knelt beside him and, with effort, rolled him onto his back. He was young, though older than she, perhaps in his early 20s, with strong features and a tangled mop of hair plastered to his brow. Holding her breath, she pressed trembling fingers to his wrist. A heartbeat. Slow. Steady. Relief flooded her, just as his eyes flickered open. A month passed. The stranger had been brought to Minster Abbey, and under Mother Windflad's watchful eye, Aylesworth had nursed him back to health. His name, he said, was Torsten. He claimed to be from the north, which explained his heavy accent. and he spoke of distant lands with easy confidence. His eyes were the colour of forget-me-nots. His flaxen hair fell loose about his shoulders. Ellsworth did not allow herself to admit that she found him handsome. One morning, as she brought his breakfast, she asked, "How came you to be washed ashore?" Mother Winflad permitted him shelter, but forbade him from mixing with the other nuns. Torsten, wearing newly made clothes, stood by the narrow window of his small cell, sunlight framing his hair and softening the hard lines of his face. "For 3 years I was a slave," he said quietly. "My master was Sika, a Frisian who traded in flesh. I rode on his ship." Ellsworth nodded in sympathy. She had seen the evidence. Raw skin at his ankles, lash marks across his back. Those unhealed, she had cleaned and bound herself. Slavery was commonplace. Her question had tested his honesty more than anything else. "When we left London week," he continued, "Sika forgot to fasten my shackles. As we entered the estuary, I slipped overboard." His voice drifted. "I swam, but the current was too strong. It dragged me under. I remember nothing more until I awoke here." He reached out, tentative, searching, and his fingers brushed hers. Ellsworth flinched. She knew the touch was sinful, yet she did not pull away. His fingers intertwined with hers. Her heart thundered. She lifted her gaze to meet his. "Thank you," Torsten whispered. "You saved my life." He leaned forward and brushed his lips against hers. The sound of the door opening shattered the moment. Ellsworth recoiled as if burned. Mother Winflad stood there, watching. "Come along now, Ellsworth," the abbess said calmly, though her eyes were sharp. "You have duties to attend." The next morning, Torsten was gone. "He left before prime," Mother Winflad explained later, her tone measured. The words struck like a hammer on an anvil, and Ellsworth fought the sudden sting of tears. The abbess's expression softened. "I know you were fond of him," she said gently and without reproach. "But this is a place of sanctuary, away from the world of men." She paused, eyes knowing. "A world seldom safe for women." Life at Minster Abbey moved on, and continued as it always had. The rhythm of prayer, labour, and saint days marking the passing of the seasons. Ellsworth had settled once more into monastic life. Mother Winflad assured her that through prayer and devotion, the infatuation would pass. It did not. In the quiet hours of night, alone in her cell, Ellsworth ached at the memory of his touch. Winter gave way to spring, and spring to summer. Lambs once again filled the fields with clumsy joy. Ellsworth was making her morning rounds, counting the flock and checking for animals that were ill or injured. The sun shone brightly in a cloudless azure sky. The sound of nesting songbirds drifted across the fields, while butterflies and bees roamed between the wild flowers. It was a perfect day, a day surely blessed by God. Soon it would be time for terce. Satisfied that all was well, she turned back towards the Abbey. At first she thought it was cloud. Then she saw smoke, black, rising. Her breath caught. Hitching her habit, she ran. Bursting from a copse of trees, she froze. The Danes had come. Outbuildings burned, their thatched roofs devoured by flame. Armed men stormed the grounds, pillaging, smashing, dragging screaming nuns across the yard. Some were cut down where they stood, others were forced to the earth. Ealhswith should have fled, but her feet were rooted. A mailed man emerged from the broken doors of the Abbey, the church's golden altar cross in his bloodied hands. A shrieking woman clawed at him. Mother Winflad. The man threw the abbess down. The heavy cross smashed into her skull, and she went still. A scream tore from Ealhswith's throat. The man looked up, his eyes fixed on her. Panic-stricken, she turned, fleeing into the trees, but the man was already in pursuit. Branches and brambles snagged at her habit as she ran, scratching the exposed skin of her face and hands. Branches snapped behind her. He was close. Ealhswith glanced back, but her foot caught on a tree root and she fell. A heartbeat later, he was upon her. He grabbed her forcefully, the stench of his ale-laced breath catching in her throat. She fought back, kicking and clawing at his eyes, until she felt the cold bite of steel at her throat. She dared not move. A cruel grin spread across the man's lips as he fumbled at the folds of her dress. Numbness took hold. Ealhswith's eyes averted, staring past him at shards of sunlight piercing the canopy above. A dark silhouette suddenly blocked the light. There was a sickening crunch. Something wet splattered across her face. The blade at her throat dropped away as the man's heavy frame slumped lifelessly over her. The body was pushed aside. Torsten stood there. A bloodied axe hung from his hand. He fell to his knees beside her. Ealhswith. He lifted her gently, wiping blood and tears from her cheeks. I am sorry, he said, voice breaking. I meant not for you to be harmed. He gasped. Red blossomed across his tunic. Ealhswith withdrew the sacks from his chest. Fresh tears rolling down her blood-smeared cheeks. He stared at her, confusion flickering to recognition, then understanding. His eyes dulled, then faded, as the last of the forget-me-nots died. Ealhswith let his body fall. Behind her, Minster Abbey burned. Before her lay the man she had saved. And as the smoke rose over Shapig, Ealhswith learnt what no gospel or parable could teach: that no good deed goes unpunished.
This chapter of Bite-Sized Tales has been brought to you under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License. Intro and outro music is Fantasy Motion by Alexander Nakarada. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, we greatly appreciate reviews and recommendations to your friends. For more information about our authors, please visit bitesizedtales.com or follow us on Instagram at bite_size_tales or on Blue Sky at bitesizedtales.bsky.social. We look forward to reading to you next time.